Annually now. It's been 30 years since we've seen Medicare instituted by President Johnson. What was it? What was the annual budget when it was first implemented in 1965?
I don't remember the figures exactly, but it just mushroomed, and it's become welfare for doctors. The doctors at first opposed it. As a matter of fact, I remember my outrage at finding the doctors teaming up with the tobacco industry to block Medicare because they thought it would be socialized medicine, and they were afraid of it. They tried to block it. It's turned out to be the biggest bonanza that they've ever gotten because they're able to charge their patients, those who have money. Those who didn't have money didn't pay them anyhow. Those who have money are still paying them as much as they ever paid them, and welfare is extra.
Where do you get your information? Who are your sources?
Well, interestingly enough, I've condemned the bureaucrats here, but the sources are bureaucrats, because the bureaucrats are, first of all, good Americans, and it's amazing how many of them dislike the system and want to see the system change. They don't like the kind of activities, the kind of bureaucratic mess that they're involved in. They cost so much money. I walked over to, as you can see, I tremble a little bit. That is, well, the doctor says it's Parkinson's. I think it may be 50 years in Washington that caused it. But I stopped by NIH to see what they'd learned about Parkinson. And I talked to one of the researchers over there, and he showed me a pencil. He said, "See this pencil?" He said, "This costs us 5 times more than I can buy the same pencil down at the pharmacy or at the drugstore in our mall." And it's the procedures that add so much money to the government bill. For example, we were outraged to discover, and we were the ones who discovered, that the Air Force was paying $7,500 to provide coffee machines in high-flying planes. Now, $7,500 sounded outrageous because at that time they could have bought one that the airlines used for $150. Why should they pay $7,500 for a coffee maker? Well, Lockheed took the blame for it because Lockheed had made the coffee maker. But I investigated it thoroughly and found out that, in fact, the Air Force had so many requirements, so many specifications, that it was actually a bargain. The Air Force required that this coffee maker survive, as I recall, 30 or 35 Gs. I mean, if there had been a crash, the coffee maker had been the only thing that survived. And this coffee maker had to meet all these specifications. And after they met all the government specifications, $7,500 was cheap. The question, it's the specifications, it's the process, it's the procedures, it's the paperwork that costs us so much money.
Why doesn't the system change?
It's never changed. It's never changed in the history of bureaucracies, going back to the Malmaduks in Egypt. They were hired to administer the government, to work. Actually, they were slaves, and they ended up as the new line of pharaohs, because the bureaucracy, in the end, turns out to be the dictator, because they know how to do things. This is what's happening in Russia today, in the Soviet Union, the Soviet bloc countries. The communists are still running things because the communists ran the bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy is essential. It's essential to the everyday operation of a government.
Page 246, you talk about the imperial ex-presidency. What is it?
Well, as I remember, it's been a little while since I've written this, but as I remember, I was referring, of course, to the care and keeping of former presidents.
Well, some of the figures that you point out, that this year alone we'll spend